With the exciting news earlier this week that PlayStation 5 is officially releasing next holiday season, and with the next Xbox releasing at the same time, what does that mean for the future of Call of Duty and specifically the next Black Ops game? As with Modern Warfare releasing in just a few weeks from now, next year's Call of Duty is going to be a Treyarch title, which we suspect to be a Black Ops 5 or a reboot of the entire Black Ops franchise. That's what I wanted to discuss today and talk about the logistics and specifics on what we can expect, what changes could be made to the game in the zombies mode with the new hardware, and much more. Now obviously it's no secret that the PlayStation 5 was officially announced this week with a lot of details regarding some of its spec and tech details as well as the controller, which can give us a little bit of insight into speculate what could be happening with this game. Now just to reiterate, if you are still on the fence that Treyarch are making a game next year, let alone a game which is going to be on the new systems, here on your screen now is a job listing on Treyarch's website back in June looking for a senior tools engineer to deliver a next generation AAA title in 2020, which basically confirms that yes, Treyarch's next game in 2020 is going to be on the next generation systems, which means right this moment Treyarch Studios are working on the next game and working with that official next generation hardware. All those weird images you've seen of the PlayStation 5 dev kit, Treyarch probably have hundreds of them working on this, which is very exciting. The big question here is how is the hardware going to evolutionize the game? And the first big thing is the fact that this year's COD Modern Warfare is on a significantly improved engine from prior Call of Duty games, a new engine purpose built for the game which took over 5 years. Going forward, all Call of Duty games will use, with Treyarch's being the next, which I'm very excited for. That engine is already pushing the game to new heights, and adding that on top of even better hardware means there should be no restrictions whatsoever in how big Treyarch want to create worlds and maps, with textures and resolutions being the sharpest we've ever seen. That new engine allows roughly 5 times more geometry per frame than used to on consoles. Previous Call of Duty games would push around 3 million polygons per frame with up to around 5 million. With this new engine, it was raised to 17 million polygons per frame. Even tested with up to 24 million triangles per frame, which is absolutely astounding. And on top of that, there's also other tech such as photogrammetry, which brings super realistic detailed textures. Adding all of this together equals an experience on PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox which is going to match what PCs can do currently with RTX graphics cards. It's confirmed with the PlayStation 5, the GPU is going to support ray tracing at a hardware level. This means that the graphic quality we've seen so far in Call of Duty, especially with Modern Warfare, is just going to be even better and more realistic for Treyarch's game, and I'm really intrigued on what sort of artistic style they're going to go down, because I feel like Black Ops 3 was the most realistic looking Call of Duty we've had in ages, especially for zombies, and Black Ops 4 felt like a bit of a backwards in terms of the graphical quality. There's just something about the maps in zombies that just don't quite look as sharp and as detailed as they did in Black Ops 3. You should have absolutely no worries there. And when it comes to the storage as well as how the hard drives are going to work on the PlayStation and very likely so on the Xbox as well, they're going to have SSDs inside of them, which means that everything is going to load so much quicker than it has before, which means not only will everything load incredibly quick, there is the leeway for much bigger worlds to be created, which means campaign levels could be huge. Zombies maps could be even bigger than what we've seen so far. It's all because of this new SSD, which is going to be in the PlayStation as well as the Xbox. And an example given is that Spider-Man loaded in 0.8 seconds compared to 15 seconds. Looking at most Black Ops 4 Zombies maps on PlayStation or Xbox, they take a good minute for you to load up from that lobby menu to actually get into the game, especially for maps like Voyage of Despair, which are just gigantic. Imagine that taking 1 to 2 seconds to load in, really making it a lot more easily accessible for you to quickly get into a game of zombies and do whatever you want. And whilst it is easy to see that as Black Ops games have gone on, the zombies maps have gotten significantly bigger, I still feel there is more room for these maps to be even bigger than they already are. Despite Voyage of Despair, none of the other maps in Black Black Ops 4 seemed overly big. With the storyline seemingly over for a restart, a reboot, there is no lengths to the limits they could go down with zombies, and I'm very excited to see how this new hardware is used, because the potential to completely revolutionize this mode is there, and with a reboot, I think it's the perfect time for them to do it. And on top of all that, we have the new engine which supports a huge amount of players. We've seen 100 players in a multiplayer game, not even like a battle royale scenario. It sounds like the engine can hold even more than 100 players, so combining that with what Black Ops 4 already achieved, we can definitely expect to see zombie matches with a lot more players involved. Even in Black Ops 2, with the shift onto the multiplayer engine, we saw 8 players in a single game of zombies. I definitely think it is reasonable to expect that we will see that return, if not even more players in a single game of zombies. Make these worlds even bigger so that it can populate a lot more players in real time on one single live game. Wasn't that an interesting scenario to think about? Just imagine an open world zombies map like Transit, where you can see multiple crews of players being involved, doing challenges all at the same time, as just like one different formula in the standard survival mode. It's a really cool thing to think about. And we can see things like Grief and Turned return, and probably even more game modes that involve a sort of party aspect for more players. And the one thing that I'm sure many will complain about when it comes to a next-gen Black Ops game is the fact that the game's already gigantic in file size. Like Black Ops 4 is nearly 200 gigabytes. And sometimes you have to delete entire other games off your hard drive just to make room for updates for Call of Duty, and it is ridiculous. I totally understand with that. But with the PlayStation 5, it's confirmed that game sizes should be smaller, or at least better optimized. With that SSD only solution, it's going to mean that the data is going to be read much faster. And the techie explanation here is that as games are running on your console, there is tons of stuff happening in the background, and a lot of the time your console is actually duplicating a load of data, so it can keep displaying everything you're seeing as one constant smooth running thing. And on the hard drives at the moment, they're not particularly fast for that. With this new SSD solution, that will no longer need to be a thing. The duplicating data thing will not happen. But how developers choose to take advantage of this will likely differ, as some may use this to build larger or more detailed game worlds, like I said with zombies maps, while other developers may be wanting to shrink the size of the games and the patches, which is something that can be done here. Better optimization all round, which is a great thing. And on top of that, game installations will also be more configurable, which means that you'll be able to install specific parts of games. So when it comes to the next Black Ops game, you might only care about zombies, where you can install just the zombies portion. You can delete the single player once you've done with it, or you can just delete multiplayer altogether. This is something as an example if developers choose to support it. On top of that, when it comes to the controller, the DualShock 5 has a few new things in it, such as adaptive triggers, which offer levels of resistance when playing a game, such as being able to feel the tension when pulling the string of a bow before firing an arrow, or having a machine gun feel different to a shotgun. Now, we have seen this before on the Xbox One controller. This is going to be entirely different to that, as it combines that with improved haptic feedback through the control sticks and the controller itself, so it feels like a more realistic rumble experience. This could be used for Easter egg steps or just gameplay in general to make it feel a hell of a lot more realistic. When speaking about all of these improvements, there is of course one caveat to all of this, and it's the fact that with this launching so soon after the predictable year-on-year release of Call of Duty, it begs the question if this Call of Duty game is going to be made on PS4 and Xbox One, as well as PS5 and the Xbox 2. This exact same situation happened last generation with Call of Duty Ghosts releasing on Xbox 360 and PS3, then a month later coming out on Xbox One and PS4. And we were all super excited to see what a next generation Call of Duty game would be like, but we're all left a bit underwhelmed at how similar it was to its previous gen counterpart. And that's because developing a game for not only the current gen, but the next gen as well, is a very difficult tightrope to cross, because you can't simply make next generation leaps and bounds with the game if it can't also be done on the last gen. And with that means that it might hinder the development of proper next generation features for the next gen game. Developing a game for the older platforms as well as the newer platforms is probably not a good thing, because the experiences shouldn't be too different from each other. And with the PS4 and Xbox One being heavily outdated by the time it comes comes out in terms of the difference in hardware could hold the game back from actually being truly evolutionary. By that I mean by overall quality of the game, the graphics, what they're able to do with some of these systems which would simply be pushed too far on the PS4 and Xbox. But on top of that, Treyarch have just over a year now to complete this game, which could potentially be releasing on 5 different platforms all simultaneously: PC, Xbox One, PS4, PS5, and the next Xbox. That is a heck of a lot of work to finish a game, let alone to release it on 2 generations of platforms at the same time. It's a very difficult decision for Activision and Treyarch to make if they even want to release a Call of Duty on both of these consoles, because you can obviously tell that when these new consoles do release, there's going to be a ton of people that are going to stick with the PS4 and the Xbox One, which is absolutely fine, is exactly normal, because not everyone can afford to buy a new console straight away, and there isn't always a necessary need or drive to get the new best thing when there isn't a lot of games out for it at that time. If you were to think in the minds of Treyarch, would it be so wise to release a game on 5 different platforms all at once? Would it be more wise to focus solely on the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox for these games, making them the best they can be, whilst alienating a huge ton of player base who have not yet moved over to the next gen? We saw it with Ghosts, even saw it with Advanced Warfare, and then finally with Black Ops 3 being the final game on last gen, where it was truly a horrible mess. We've seen it clear as day that Treyarch's next game is indeed going to be a next generation game in 2020. All signs point that it is on PS5, but we just don't know to what extent they can really use and utilize that new hardware to their advantage. But I really hope what they do manage to build is an absolutely fantastic game. Black Ops 4 by no means was a terrible Call of Duty game. It just felt very different to the previous Black Ops games, and it didn't really hit the home runs which we all expected it to. So Treyarch need to really be on their A game here, and I have a huge amount of faith in them that they are going to deliver a quality game. Ghosts made the leap to next generation. There wasn't an entirely big difference. It was pretty much the exact same game with just higher resolution and textures, which we could possibly see again this time with Black Ops 5 or the next Black Ops game. But we're talking about that engine, I just think it's going to be such a optimized game that it's going to run so well on the current generation of consoles anyway, that when it does run on these next gen consoles, it's just going to blow us away with just how well it's going to perform. We're expecting stuff like full 4K resolution on both the PS5 and the Xbox, with even the potential for higher resolutions as well. But a native 4K 60 for Call of Duty is going to be an absolutely incredible looking game. We've heard the rumors that this is going to be a reboot set in the Cold War. This has all come from Kotaku. But what do you think that's going to mean for zombies? What do you think Treyarch are going to do with zombies, with the main focus of the game being in that era? Zombies can be in whatever era it wants to be. It doesn't have to be at all related to the campaign and multiplayer. But with that in mind, what do you think they can do? Where will the story go? Is Chaos going to continue? Are they going to bring a brand new storyline now, which is separate from Ether and Chaos? Only time will tell. But with the PlayStation 5 announcement, I thought it was very exciting to just bring a video discussing what sort of changes we can expect with this new hardware now that we know some specific details on the tech, as well as knowing that the next Treyarch game is going to be on that console. But let me know what camp you sit in. Are you going to be getting a new PS5 or a new Xbox next year along with the new Treyarch game, or are you just going to sit and wait until there's a bigger reason to get a new console and get the game on PS4 or Xbox? Let me know. But that's all, guys. Let me know if you enjoyed the video by dropping a like rating. If you didn't enjoy it, then leave a dislike. Feel free to subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.